to this week's episode of MVP Real Estate Podcast. We have Alexandra Docheva from Arizona, who is a real estate investor and nurse, all self-made. She came over from Bulgaria and just like a forest fire, paved her own path into basically retirement, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
At this point, still working, and you will find out why. She is the epitome of discipline. We touch on health, we touch on real estate, all through this podcast. We do leave out a lot of the health stuff. If you are interested in her overall wellness, mindset, discipline, we're putting a link to her website and her book, both audiobook and paper copy. You will not be disappointed in reading her book or talking to her about lifestyle. I'm going to let her speak on it because she does it way better than I do. So let's bring her on. All right. Thank you, Alexandra, for being here, giving us the time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You are coming from the sunny Arizona, where you said it was 115 degrees today, or it could get to.
Yeah, I was going to get to 124 degrees, but 3 days ago it was 115. Today is going to be 100, 105, so we're thrilled. We'll get the jackets out.
A mild 105 over there. Good. Well, cool. Other than the heat, kind of give us a background of, I guess, where you came from and what led you into real estate and how did you get there? Because what we found out with this show, people get into real estate from all different angles, and it's always fascinating to see where it comes from.
Yes, so I am originally from Bulgaria, came here in 2000 to get my master's and doctoral degrees in classical violin. I was a violinist for 29 years, but after 26 years of being a violinist, I figured I wasn't going to prosper here professionally in the United States, because when they cut the orchestras in 2006, 2008 with the financial crisis, competition grew exponentially. So I put myself through nursing school. At that point, it was a drastic change. Wanted a full-time job, wanted security, wanted, to be useful to society and humanity better than when I was a classical musician. So it was a very dramatic experience. I was 32, early midlife crisis and all that. And then I entered the workforce as a nurse in 2011 upon graduation. And in a couple of years, I realized that job security, even as a nurse, a profession that is so sought after and respected all over the world, was pretty much a myth because of the high turnover, exhaustion, the way corporations that devour hospital after hospital treat the nurses and the doctors to an extent. So I came to realize I needed a plan B. And that's when I got very interested in finances. I had no clue about finances, just as I had no clue about science when I committed to learning nursing. And I took a couple of mentorship online classes with the Rich Dad Company, Robert and Kiyosaki. And in 2014, my boyfriend and I moved from Syracuse, New York, to Arizona because it's a landlord-friendly state and the climate is much more beneficial. The prices are better, the taxation, everything, you name it. And in 2014, I bought my first property, which was a fourplex building with 4 apartments. It was my very first real estate property because I had been a tenant before that for 14 solid years. And we lived in one of the apartments. And then I purchased some single family houses and more property. He purchased our house. And I've been in the business for 10 years now. It's been really, really great, and financially independent and with many more choices as far as money is concerned.
That's awesome. What a cool road that led you to real estate. And you did name drop the Robert Kiyosaki. I recommend him to anybody that wants to just dip their toe into understanding finances a little bit different way. Because I know Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the second book I read as I got into real estate. The first one was The Subtle Art. That was my first book. And then it was Robert Kiyosaki. And I even went as far as to buy his version of Monopoly, the cash flow.
The cash flow game, of course. Yeah, they send it to you complimentary if you sign up for the classes online.
Yes.
Yeah, I played that quite a bit.
Did you do Robert's classes?
So first I read 7 of his books. And then I really decided to. I first took the Rich Dad Become Rich group coaching, Choose to Be Rich group coaching. And he had a coach who was a lawyer who owned 6 businesses. And at that point, they sent the cash flow game complimentary. And I remember my boyfriend and I played for hours and hours and hours. at the end of that coaching, they offered a decreased price, like a discount for three of the main courses, which were the real estate, rich dad, the business pyramid, and the stock. And I really wanted to enroll in all three of them, but at the time, because I was a beginning nurse, it was really cost prohibitive. But I got engrossed in real estate because of the way Robert and Kim explained it so well, and with the books. And I started that class in 2014. We already were planning on moving to Arizona, so I wanted to be ready to become a real estate investor after this class and fresh in my brain. So I took it. It was a 3 month with a personal coach every week over the phone, and it was just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I can never spend money better than for this
Yeah.
mentorship.
Yeah. It's life-changing. So it's super cool that you took the step, and obviously it bared its fruit, and you're seeing that now.
Yeah.
And I know the audience didn't catch what we were talking about before the show, but we were talking about food and changing your mindset on food, kind of. And I look at you, you had so many obstacles to overcome. You're coming in from a different country. So I have questions on that alone. The first one, like, was there a big cultural um learning curve for you as you come over from another country and then you tried to learn the Robert Kiyosaki way of finances? Was there any culture clash or differences that you had to learn just outside of his book?
All of the above, of course. For one thing, I came to the States as a student on a student visa, so I wasn't legally allowed to work anything outside of my scope of practice as a violinist. So there was assistantship, scholarships. I was a graduate student, and then with once I got out of music and I had to pay for my own education, I learned the real responsibility of committing to learning, because now it's coming out of your pocket and you're owing money. I didn't know anything about finances and investing. And I remember clearly when I read the first book by Robert that I chose was Increase Your Financial IQ. And I couldn't understand 75% of what he was talking about, although he is capable of writing very clearly for idiots like me that I was at the time. And that's why I knew I was a real true financial invalid. I also got familiar with Mike Maloney's book about gold and silver and how the precious metals increase in price while the stock market dumps in price. And he had these wonderful graphs of how they mirrored themselves. I got fascinated, but I knew that the Robert talks about entitlement, sense of entitlement, wanting free stuff from the government, how people expect help when they really could help themselves. And that was really, really hard for me to swallow, because for one thing, I came from Bulgaria entitled, because Bulgaria was a very poor country. I come to the richest country. For some reason, I had the idea that the rich people owe to the poor money and help. And that's just, then I learned that couldn't be further from the truth, because if you really want something, you have to earn it. There is no free lunch, dinner in life. If you care for something that's truly valuable to you, everything else is just a lie. And yes, there are many rich people who donate, who give charities and everything, but for many reasons, it could be either tax evasion, tax avoidance, and then they recover their money. So, and many of them are very generous. However, they don't owe me anything. And so that was the major shift in mindset that Robert instilled with his books in me. And then when I started learning these classes, I mean, they were rough, and because they wouldn't allow you to reschedule if you committed to the day and time of the week for the 3 months. And that was their way to teach you, if you commit to something, you stay committed, because nobody's obligated to accommodate your schedule. And that was my really first touch up with, okay, I really am paying all this money now for this mentorship. It's my responsibility. They're not going to give it back. And if I really want to learn, I stay on the schedule and I do it. Not that I wasn't disciplined before, but if you're especially venturing into something that you didn't learn in school, school wasn't teaching that real estate mentorship and investment mindset. And my friends were saying, oh, these people are crooks. They're going to take your money. Don't listen to that. So everybody's against your new endeavor, and you've committed 4,400. You stay on schedule, and it's your responsibility, it's your risk. And that was a great learning experience, which came very useful once I started buying the properties and working with tenants, contractors, insurance agents, lenders, everything, and just added up nicely.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, like you touched on the Bulgaria being a poorer country. was the concept of owning real estate or investment properties even a thought in Bulgaria? And I apologize for my ignorance. I've never been there, so
That's fine. That's fine.
this is an open question.
Uh, it was, depending though which political system you're talking about, because during socialism and communism, you were very limited with what you could do. You could only own so many properties, and yeah, you can rent them. Then, when the wall fell and all that, the cold regime ended, you could buy. It became very expensive for people like my parents who are musicians. So depending what work you choose, what business you're in, and then the corruption and the mafia is just horrible in this country because it's so small. It feels so heavily, and they overbuilt buildings on authentic grounds and architectural monuments. They overbuilt over the years. So yeah, absolutely, it became a concept, but depending who is buying them and who owns them, and it's just a very different situation there. But see, my grandmother was renting a room at some point, and she had also problems with her tenants, who were primarily female, that you would expect will be nice student college girls, but there's all sorts of problems. No, I never thought about that. My parents knew nothing about real estate or finances for that matter. But I just got convinced by the books I read that tangible assets were better than the fake assets with the stock market and all that, which I learned later, of course, and I did learn how to trade options by the stock coach of Robert Kiyosaki, because I got curious there too. But first, I secured these tangible assets. And in my country, there are landlords now, there always have been. But we were just never in touch with such people when I was growing up because we were musicians, cultural people. We're above all these things. Money is, something like you don't have to talk about at all. It doesn't matter. Although my parents struggled many years financially to make ends meet, but money didn't matter. So, the mindset, how it is that many families would not encourage you to learn financially and prosper in that way. Investment of losing money, they can't take risks, they're afraid of failure, and a lot of mental garbage that needs to be eliminated and replaced with different thought processes.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, you are a proof of anybody listening that has objections to not do this. Like you have overcome so many objections that a lot of people don't even have to consider. So kudos to you for getting that done. And
Thank you, I
I
appreciate
think
it.
it's a very, very good message to people listening that want to get going and have those small objections to see the massive amount of objections or roadblocks that you could have had that you overcome. So kudos to that one. That's impressive.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Um, and now I want to get into starting your real estate career. And I know we're only focusing on one piece of the pie of what makes you awesome in your lifestyle. But in your real estate investing, you're putting yourself through nursing school. Have you graduated by the time you bought your fourplex? I didn't catch that in the timeline.
Oh, no, I graduated in 2011.
Okay.
And I was in the workforce for 3 years. And that's how I got convinced I needed to become a real estate investor, because plan B is always a good idea in case
Yeah.
I got burnt out or, and you know what happened during the COVID pandemic, but nobody was thinking about that at the time. If they force you to take something against your will, that it's dangerous because you see
Yeah.
people die from it. I mean, you have to have choices to leave the work if you have to. But no, I was 2.5, 3 years into the workforce as a nurse when I purchased the fourplex.
Okay. And then you basically went into save mode because you were diligent in your coursework with Robert Kiyosaki and what you were learning. You were saving money for your down payment for that first fourplex.
Oh, yes, yes. And
Yep.
not only that, but I was also buying things for SEO business because I was learning how to build websites at the time. I wanted to learn lots of things. So that went nowhere. But for 2, 3 years, I was also saving and spending money on websites and SEO learning and courses and all that. So I went on a really rigid financial mode. I had zero credit card debt. That's absolutely never has been a problem. But now I teach people how to get rid of credit card debt because that's buying power. It's basically the fifth criterion for you to be able to buy real estate if you want
Yep.
to, unless you want to pay cash for it, which most beginning investors really can't do. And
Yeah.
but yeah, the investing came after the graduation from nursing school. Definitely.
Okay. Okay. And then how did you find your first fourplex? Because I know there's a lot of investors that go in and like, I don't want to buy it too big and start too big too early. So a lot of people shy away from the fourplex. You must have had a very good opportunity to pick one up. in your
Yes.
local market?
So we wanted a duplex at first or a triplex. Now I was gonna buy it because my boyfriend was really not convinced that was a good idea. Okay. Later on, he became convinced because he saw it was working, and I don't blame him at all. Because and he always helped with anything I needed help with. But as far as the financial part and the risk taking, that was all me in the LLC. But I looked for duplexes. Those were overpriced here in the area, and mind you, that was 2014. So we were already 7 years into this current bubble because in 2007, 2008, things fell apart, and now, so 6 years into the bubble, 2014. So those were already overpriced. They were in decent areas, but I didn't like the prices. Then there were triplexes. That was also very tempting and attractive. Those happened to be in crime-infested areas when I was looking. I looked throughout the valley, man. We came here in May of 2014. I immediately started working on looking everywhere for properties. I built a real estate team that month. And I was so busy interviewing lenders, lawyers, insurance agents, real estate managers, everybody, the team that Robert Kiyosaki suggested. So I interviewed 5, 6 of these people, lenders, 15, because nobody wanted to lend me the money, right? So that was the most wonderful part. But it just didn't work out with duplexes and triplexes at the time. So when I finally found a real estate agent that I liked, he was an investor himself, owned 9 properties, managed 7 of them. 2 were managed by a different company. And he put me on the multifamily list. And the fourplexes really turned out to be more realistic for my budget. And then there were some deals that offered an FHA loan with the condition, of course, that the landlord would live in one of the apartments. And that's what we wanted because we didn't want to buy a house first and then not have an investment property. So I bought the fourplex, and then we moved into one of the apartments. Of course, there were negotiations as which apartment we moved to, the bigger or the small one, because I wanted to move into the smallest one, but boyfriend wanted the biggest apartment for ourselves. And then they all needed renovation, guys, because the landlord was an absentee person from California who had been treating the tenants like dogs on the property, basically. And my decision was from the very beginning, the tenants will be happier than me. So we renovated the 3 apartments that we were not going to live in. And we lived for a year and a half in the other apartment, the largest one, but it was broken and painted, nasty. I didn't touch that because I had to renovate 3 apartments on a salary of a beginning nurse in Arizona. So it was stressful enough, and we got the tenants. And then when we moved out of the house the fourplex a year and a half later, when boyfriend bought our house, then we renovated the first the bigger apartment, and he taught me then how to paint because I had no clue. And he said, well, you're going to save a lot of money if you learn how to paint ceilings, walls, and trim. And I learned that way. And then the next property, I painted a whole 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house by myself because his schedule didn't allow to help me at that point. And I painted everything from top to bottom 2 years later. So learning curve, but fourplexes just worked out best in our case.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And when I got into real estate, that was one of my major goals, was to make sure that all of my rental income would surpass my living expenses. And
absolutely.
that is exactly where you're going with the house hack technique. So you move into this fourplex, and I'm assuming your rent roll was at least subsidizing whatever your rental rate would be in that building, if not taking it all over.
Actually, as a matter of fact, we had a $70 cash flow every month after the debt, the utility bill for the electric and the water bill and the HOA. We had $70 cash flow as we were living in that apartment for free, which was pretty damn good. Yes, whooping $70. But of course, I had to pay a lot of money for the renovations, and that's a given. But I paid very little for a down payment because it was an FHA, and I got 3.5% down payment. Plus, there were all these rents that came immediately, and actually the lender. No, it was the underwriter that said, oh, she cannot be getting more money from the renter that she's paying for the down payment. And the lender said, why the heck not? That's the way it works with the rental property. And then eventually it worked out. And that was the 15th lender I contacted. It was just so hard. And I almost lost the deal. So it's, adventure every day. Like real estate.
No, absolutely. And you touched on what my next question was. You get the down payment. You said you're under an FHA loan, which, if I remember correctly, it's a 2-year period where you need to live on the property. Okay.
Yeah, because the lender said, well, it's not like a set in stone, but you really want at least a year or at least 6 months. She wasn't really explicit. I mean, we knew we couldn't buy a house within the next 6 months or a year
Yeah.
because it was going to be my boyfriend's purchase. It was his dream. And I said, so you work on the house. I work on the property because it's a lot of money, man. And he said, that's fine, no problem at all. And he got his FHA loan because a first-time homeowner. So
Yep.
it worked out great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you purchased the fourplex with financing and your down payment. Where did the capital come? And the only reason I ask down on these numbers is because this is a relevant topic for the people starting.
Absolutely.
They always run into this problem. Where am I getting the funds from? So you accomplished saving up the money for the down payment. On your 15th lender, you got your lending package that you can use. And now it comes to rehab. Where did you find the capital for the rehab? Or was that wrapped into your loan?
It was not wrapped into the loan at all. I got credit cards with Lowe's and Home Depot, and because I had a decent salary, I chose Lowe's business credit card. Give you two options: either 10% discount on your purchase of appliances, whatever needed to be purchased, or 6 months interest free. So I will always embrace the cash. So I said 10 months off. I'll pay
Yeah.
it off the next month because I had some more savings left, and then two salaries went absolutely to pay for the renovation of the first apartment. Then came the second apartment, and I constantly was saving and minimally. See, my monthly expenses are less than $1,000 even to the present day. So I've always kept it that way. So it was not a problem to afford to save and pay immediately any debt and be at zero, because that also boosted my credit score quite a bit. So I
Mhm.
wanted that because I knew I was going to be buying more properties. I
Yep.
was extremely disciplined. Okay, I don't buy luxury crap. And we eat very healthy. I mean, we don't eat out restaurants, because that's awful food anyway. So why pay more for food that is unhealthy to begin with? So there are many ways to save money along the way, little bits at a time. And I constantly repeat to myself, every dollar is made out of 100 pennies. And when we try to save a little bit, and sometimes he says, oh my gosh, we got to live a little. Can we just do this? I tell him every dollar. He was like, whatever. It's just goes. But he played along though, and that was very nice because he saw the benefits, and it doesn't immediately show, but with consistency, you are able to accumulate more capital and more capital. And see, with tenants though, you don't want to spend exponentially because they don't treat this property like it's their own.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, so you need to provide the really decent, uh, comfortable, nice looking environment, but you can be spending 500 on a faucet when you can spend 50 and it still looks professional, practical,
Yep.
usable, and clean. Okay,
Yep.
because some tenants are amazing, but most aren't.
Yep.
And you have to be realistic about it. You want to, and I also want to keep my prices low. See, one of my criteria when I purchase properties, I look at the rental market. I want a certain amount of money at the end of the month after debt and everything. And I plan on satisfying myself with this amount of money for a very long time, because that amount of money has to fit the middle of the rental market. I never start on the top of the rental market because I want to stay competitive. So I start in the middle of the rental market once I buy the property, and then I always gravitate to the lower end of the rental market.
Wow.
And I never lose my tenants unless they are bad and I have to evict. But the tenants who I've had now, they've been there 6, 7 years, 5 years,
Good.
because my prices are such that I never took advantage of this horrible greed wave after the COVID pandemic. That landlords were increasing their rents by 100, 200, 300, $500 per lease renewal. I had never heard about such a thing. And my tenants were dreading. I told them, this year you're not due for an increase. And they're like, are you crazy? My colleague got a $400 increase. I said, do you want that? No, I'm not going to do that to you. Then I increase every other year by $25 to $50. And it was never $50, but because of the inflation, I had to increase all the rents by $50 when everybody else was increasing by 500.
Yeah.
Right.
And the tenants, like with tears in their eyes, say, why do you do that? I say, because I don't need more of your money, guys. I have
Yeah.
structured my life in a way that, first of all, I don't have to take from you
Yeah.
what I don't have to take from you. That's another way of giving people. Just don't take if you don't need to take from them.
Yeah.
It's a basic ethical principle. And
Yep.
people seem very surprised.
I know, because it's not a norm, but I mean, if you can boil down and you have your standards for other human beings, in real estate is such a weird dynamic
Mhm.
where it's a business, but your business is people, and you can't treat them like
Absolutely.
numbers. Get properties. Once you have the property, you're dealing with people, and you have to
Exactly.
understand that they are people too.
Yes,
Um,
they have their dreams, their lives, their obligations, their problems. They are human beings, and you have to treat them with utmost respect and empathy if you can,
yeah,
while following all the rules. And they do follow all the rules that you have on your lease, and you remind them if it has to, that's what you agreed to. But on
yeah,
the other end, I have to treat them equally, respectfully.
yeah, yep. And just meeting where they're at. I know that it's through this whole COVID thing, I've had I've had to raise rents. And one was a weird scenario where we did raise it $300. It's because when we bought the property, we always buy the worst properties. Like this, we had to jack up the floor because the floor was deviating. So this was a major remodel. And I don't want to put a tenant in, charge them max rate, and then they have all of these problems that I didn't know were going to be problems because I've never lived there. So if we do a major renovation, I just try to make our numbers work where we're recouping what our mortgage payment is. We have some cash flow, but once the property we know is solid, then we put it back into that middle rate, which is
Yeah,
that increase was that middle rate. And I told them like, hey, this is my one increase. I'm not increasing you next year. I probably won't increase you the rate after. I just need to get to this benchmark. And
right.
now that we're here, we're good. They've
That's
been
a decent
awesome
selling
tenants.
point. That's
Yeah.
a decent rent selling point. You also want to keep in mind that once the bubble bursts, which is going to
Mhm.
horribly worse than in 2008, you don't want them to flee to a super much cheaper rent. So you really want to stay on the bottom end of the market right now,
Yep.
so you can keep these people and not lose them right away. Because what happens, how investors now are buying these atrociously expensive properties, and they have
Hmm.
to jack up rents so badly that once these loans explode, they're either going to default. And somebody happened that in the area of the fourplex, actually, there was a desperate real estate agent that was calling me. He wanted to sell the property for $900,000 when I bought it for $200,000 in 2014. I told him, guys, do you realize that's a bullshit price, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but we might try to decrease it. So they called me 2 weeks later, said, now it's $850,000. Are you interested in buying? I said, no, no, and you don't call me again. Okay, so he stopped calling. Why do you even agree to purchase this project and deal with it? It's completely unrealistic. And
Yeah.
the area also is important. I mean, 4 or 5 times the price that it costed. Even in 2014, that was already getting expensive at $215,000, and now they want $900,000 because they bought it. They saw it was not a good deal that they got, and now they want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to attract the landlords in the area because you see, we're gonna jump to buy this property only because it's in the area. Come on.
Yes. Oh, you got to go back on the numbers on that one. Man, that's a crazy, and that was over a 2 year period, or how many year period was that from when you were purchasing at 250 and they're trying to sell at nine? What was that time frame?
215,
215.
215 in
215.
2014. Okay, so 2014, 215. Last year, they're trying to sell it at $900,000. A year earlier, some moron was trying to sell his property for $750,000. And apparently another moron, bigger one, bought it. And they went into a hole, and now they did some renovations or whatever. They spent money, so they want to compensate for the money, and now they want
Yep.
to sell it for $900,000. What types of rents am I supposed to put in these 900 square foot apartments? I mean,
Yep.
come on.
Yeah. And that's the tough part with all the prices raised here. I mean, it's across the nation. Um,
Mhm.
there are some people that aren't understanding how multifamily is different than residential. There's a couple duplexes that are in this surrounding area that we invest in that I could look at and be like, okay, that's a normal house cost. Like it fits in line, but I'm looking at a duplex. I can't buy it at that price because my rent would not, I would have to jack up the rent to a part where I would feel bad that the tenants are paying that rental amount
Exactly.
and not just owning a house and paying their mortgage for what they're paying me in rent.
Exactly.
And there's
Exactly.
this really weird middle ground where I just don't feel right doing that. So that's not a contention for a purchase because if they were my client as an agent, I would tell them like stop renting and go buy a house. Like figure out a
Exactly.
way to get a down payment because you're wasting your money by paying that rental amount.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great point. Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
And like what you were talking about, you worked with an investor who is focused on multifamily. And that's the one thing that I always tell people that are either buying or renting. When you get into talking with an agent, find out what they usually do. Do they sell single family homes? Do they own rental properties? Do they focus
Mhm.
on? Because an agent that knows a market and an agent that does multifamily in that same market, they look at it through different glasses. And you,
Exactly.
not every agent is the same. You have to understand that there's very,
Absolutely.
very different niches in real
You should be
estate.
an experienced investor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always caution people with that. Like no agent is the best. They just have a little niche that they're in. So
Yes.
sounds
Same with
like
the lenders, by the way.
yes.
Different lenders have access to different lending products.
Yes. All
That's
right.
also
So
good.
can you expand on your background or your knowledge on that? Because you've spoken to many, many financial institutions. So
Yeah.
what's like the takeaways you get from each little a bank or a mortgage company or hard money? Like what's your feel and experience on those?
So I never go to a bank. Okay, I always go to private land, private money. So the first time, because I was a tenant with excellent credit score but no experience in real estate, no owning real estate, and now they said, "Oh, you now want to be a landlord? Fantastic!" So they would not. And I did look into seller's finance. I really wanted that, but then there was a seller who had like a wreck of a house. They wanted 50 grand down and 12% interest on top of that, when my interest was going to be
Yeah.
3.5% from the bank. So I have great credit. I have no incentive to buy that. But with the lenders, there was a little competition between two of them because one wanted to give me the FHA loan for a triplex. And then another one, her competition, said, "I'm going to give you an FHA loan for a fourplex." I said, "Oh, good." So then I called the penultimate, the 14th lender, and I said, "This company is going to give me, for a fourplex." And she said, "I can do that for you tomorrow." And then I took
Nice.
her because she flipped immediately. Oh, the competition is going to take the deal, right? Now, when it came to buying our house right now, what was interesting, I saw this ad of a real estate agent who was offering a government grant on a down payment for an FHA loan. You only pay closing costs. And I said, that sounds too good to be true, but let's find out. So I connected with that real estate agent. I said to my boyfriend, "Hey, come here. Here's what I found." He said, "I'm never going to qualify for that." I said, "You don't know that. Okay, so let's talk to the real estate agent." I met with her. He met with her, and then she said, "Yeah, my lender, she has access to these loans, 3.5 to 5% down payment, a government grant. If you qualify, it's a 2-page questionnaire." And of course, the boyfriend, skeptical as usual, said, "I'm going to qualify." I say, "You can do the sheets, fill these sheets, give it to her." 3 days later, lo and behold, he qualifies. Okay, so his house, he paid only the closing costs on the house. And I
That's
said, "How
awesome.
come I didn't know about this product?" And then the real estate agent that I was dealing at the time, she said, "Well, different lenders know different products. They have access to different products, and the lending market changes just as fast as the real estate market. And not all the lenders are able to keep up, even if they try to, because of where they are and the influences they're under. And
Mhm.
it really takes a lot of learning every day of your career because things change so rapidly." So that was very eye-opening.
Yeah. And it's a very cool scenario when you have lenders competing for your deal and you can
Mhm.
pin
Yeah.
lenders against each other. It's very, very cool. And when you're getting into real estate, that thought seems foreign. Like no one's going to want to push that hard to give me money.
Well,
Like
it
I have to
only
push them to
it only
want.
happened once. It only happened once. It was the most crucial part, though, because that was my first property. It was just so stressful. I was almost ready to give up. But I remember when I interviewed for the Kiyosaki class, the person who was on the phone said, "There's only one thing you need to promise us." I said, "What is that?" "You never give up." So
Mhm.
I said, "I promised that," and I remembered it. It's stuck in my brain. So like, I'm not going to give up after 15 lenders. So I'll call 300 if I have to. That was such a promising thought. But yeah, it's you just have to persevere with
Yep.
that.
And that's the stubbornness coming out. That's the beauty of the stubbornness where you just don't give up.
Right.
So if anybody tries to bash the stubbornness, that is your claim to fame, like so stubborn that I will not give up and it's working.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's stubborn. I think it's discipline, especially like you say, coming from the inch playing, you said the violin, right?
Violin. I
Yeah,
yeah, play the violin. Yeah.
yeah, how disciplined you have to be practicing and working on that and honing your craft. I think
Oh,
that just led into every other aspect of your life, like you said, with your diet change, your learning, coming here to be a nurse and do like everything, I think goes back to being as disciplined as you are. which led to those
Yeah, the
opportunities.
violin took a big part. Yes, I was practicing 9 hours a day before I became a nurse. So you learn the discipline early on,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it works if you decide to apply it in your other areas of your life. Problem is most people don't connect the dots that way. They are disciplined in one area and they're a complete disaster in other areas just to compensate for the discipline in the other area, and I think that's a big mistake that people make all over the
Yep.
place.
Yep. Yeah. And I just went through this scenario where I'm like, so disciplined as a father, so disciplined in my career. And then in my personal life, I'm like, I'm so disciplined, I don't want to. But that lack of discipline wreaks havoc in that area of your life where you don't give the discipline, like you were just alluding to. Like, discipline isn't a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad word. And you're proving that it's not a bad word. You get a lot of fruit from discipline.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a father, especially, you really want to lead by example, because you can tell your children to be disciplined all you want, but if they don't see that in you, you will gradually lose credibility, especially in their most problematic years when they're teenagers and they take all other influences but the parents. I mean, if you lead by example early on, I think you have a better chance to regain their confidence in your integrity and
Mhm.
respect. And it's very, very important with children.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine how you guys do that. I don't have children.
It's fun and it is wild.
Mhm.
It's wild, but you get through it. I mean, the obstacles, I'm looking at mine, and I don't want to be too frank here, but I'm looking at my challenges as a father and the challenges you went through, and I'm like, me being a dad is a breeze from
No,
what
no,
you
no.
came
Being
through.
a good parent is the biggest responsibility you can possibly inflict on yourself. It's the biggest responsibility, and my admirations to all parents.
And Dan, how many do you have?
I have 4.
4.
Oh my
So he
God.
beats me. I only got the 1.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
see, yeah, I can't imagine. See, my boyfriend and I were very similar in that mindset. We say we have children, we're gonna kill them and go to jail. Not even our own DNA is worth going to jail for. So we're like, no.
Oh man.
um,
Yeah.
all right. So fourplex, this is evolution 2. You went through your knowledge, you bought your first property, which I feel like every investor has a sweet spot for that first purchase. And then it gets easier and easier, and
It
the
does.
field keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the wheel keeps going, and you pick up speed. So how fast after that first fourplex did it take you to jump into project 2? And then I guess basically where are you sitting at this point?
So two and a
From
half years to project 2, then another year to project 3. And
Okay.
those projects were like really, especially project 3, I saw the property. So with the fourplex, the thing is the learning curve, okay? Huge learning curve, a lot of expenses, a lot of problems with tenants initially, and you quadruple your problems when you have a multifamily, okay? If you have a fourplex, you have 4 problems instead of 1. And that's what intimidates many people. They wouldn't buy a fourplex. With houses, it's easier to keep tenants in houses, and especially the last property was amazing, the one in 2018, because then the prices became such that we decided we're gonna now hibernate. We'll wait for a better market right now because we're perfectly fine. We can stop working at any point at this time because our house is completely paid off.
Nice.
And in the 4 years from now, I'll have all of my properties paid off to 0. Okay, so that's another part of the discipline because I like owning assets 100%. But that's me, okay? But with the third property, it was great because the price was wonderful. It was completely renovated. And then there was a property down the street that was $20,000 more expensive. And then this owner, when I offered the asking price, she went into competing. What is it? When you try to jack up your down payment, your price, because she realized that the real estate agent had offered a very low price on the market. And we went to other properties. I gave up on that because I offered $1,000 more, but then I said, that's it. We're not going to be competing with other people. That's price war. No, we don't do that. And I was ready to place 4 different offers on other properties with price modifications because those needed work. And I didn't agree with any of the prices, but they were decent enough for us to be able to fix them fast and get tenants before the first mortgage is due, because that's another criterion. I want to have tenants maybe 2 weeks before the first mortgage is due, so I can make some money before I even have to pay mortgage, and then with the discounted for the first month, the prorate. And suddenly my agent calls me, said they agreed to your offer. So what offers? The house that you love, that you offered $1,000 more, so get it. And that house took 2 days of work from
Really?
us. 2 days. The third day I now put it, no, the second day of the evening I put it on the market, and the third day I had a signed contract with tenants who have been there ever since 2018.
That is such a
Wonderful
good
stuff.
feeling.
That was amazing, and I was like, now I can take a break, because they
Yeah.
were so good that whenever they have problem in the house, he says, can you just purchase this very fast from Lowe's, and I'm going to install it in the house, because it's very handy. So he saves me time from handymen, from contractors, and to wait and the price. He occasionally we might lower the rent on them a little bit if they perform, like they changed the entire garage door mechanism. He did it himself, and I said, okay, I'm going to take from your rent whatever you say, extremely reasonable prices, but it's worked great for 8 years with these people, and we love them. And again, in the area, the price is the cheapest rent for the square footage of the house, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Everything else is $600,000-$800,000 more expensive than my rent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we
I like
kept
that.
migrating west because the prices kept getting higher and higher centrally. So when you migrate like 30, 40 miles from your house, I say put a rest, because if you have renovations, you don't want to be driving 50, 60 miles. I don't like that. I'm very proprietary with my time. And so that's another consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your philosophy on allowing tenants to do some stuff around the property. Like that's something that I offer too. I had a tenant who, back in the day, she had worked. The baseboards are getting a little dirty. Do you mind if I paint them? And I was like, why would I mind if you want to? You work for a painting company. I know you can paint. I'll drop off the paint and a gift card to you, because in my mind, when you move out, I would have to do that, and I would have to pay money for people to do that. If you want to make the house a little bit cleaner and upgrade the property and you want to do it, here's the paint, here's paintbrushes, and there's $50 to go get dinner with you and your fiance or husband for doing that work, because I appreciate it. That's, you're helping me out and you're making your space. Like the more I can get the tenants to care about their living space, it's a win-win, because they're going to take care of my property. They're going to get a nice space to live in. I feel like it's a win-win at that point.
Well, you have to be very careful with that. So for one thing, my leases completely prohibit tenants from touching the property. But when you get into a relationship with them business-wise, you know who knows what. Because for instance, one of the single-family homes I bought, the tenants had done such an amazing job. There was purple, dark purple accent wall. There was purple splashes on the white ceiling, and there was purple paint on the windows. And that just in the frame just took forever to clean. So you really want to be careful who you allow what, and in some cases you won't know. So it's a very fine line there, gray area, lots of gray.
Yep. And I always make sure to ask. And like when she said, my initial answer was no. And she was like, well, I work for a painting company. She sent me some pictures of things that she's painted. And I was like, okay, with the caveat. And I always caveat, like if a tenant wants to paint a wall, if I can feel comfortable that you're going to do it, great. But if I walk in, it's bad. You have to be prepared that you're going to get charged for repainting this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a risk you're willing to take. So choose wisely. And most often than not, they're like, yeah, then I don't want to do it, which is fine by me. But I can't agree to you painting and you paint my wall bright pink. And it's like, well, you said I could. You can't do that. I can't allow that to happen.
Right.
And obviously anything that's mechanical or weight bearing, they're not removing, like we're not touching that. That's at that point, I think you're ready to buy your own house at that point. Let's find a house for you to buy.
Right. Exactly.
Or let's sign this rent to own contract.
Yes. Yes. The rent to owns, that's an aspect that
there is. Yeah, see, I like to keep my properties though. I really like Warren Buffett for his philosophy, buy and don't sell. Because if you keep the properties and you maintain them well, they can provide till the rest of your life. Especially in certain markets that you know there is plenty of employment, you will always have tenants. People cannot live in computers. I'm sorry, they have to have roof above their head. So I like to keep, because with selling and reselling and then the right to own, you do lose the cash flow at some point. And I mean, it really depends on your goal. And if you want to expand in some different way, then of course you want to sell something to buy something bigger. That makes perfect sense. if you're okay with hiring a management company, if you buy a 12 apartment building or a 15 apartment building or a 20, then you will need really professional management on that to manage with the time and the demand for the renovations and to keep the tenants happy and satisfied. But it all depends on your plans for the future, your 5, 10, 15 years ahead. I mean, your parents, so you have different perspective on life than I do, different goals, different obligations and responsibilities. Of course, it's an option.
Yep.
Rent to
And you
own.
mentioned a property management. I know that you are very diligent with your time. With all of your properties that you are owning, do you have a property management company that manages those?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't trust anybody with bookkeeping. So I manage the properties. I have a team of excellent contractors. If need be, I can call them. I have substitutes. I've assured that the very important people are on my team. And if they can do it, they can recommend somebody who can with the same quality. And it has worked so far.
Awesome.
But if I expand to 20, 30 properties, that's not going to be realistic.
Yeah. And then you start looking at the management company when it becomes an animal.
Well, I interviewed several management companies when I started in 2014, and the real estate agent that I found, he was adamant that I should manage my property for at least a year or two before I hire a management company. And the other problem was that I was not satisfied with the interviews with any of these people, because I asked them, how many properties do you manage? 500. How many accounts do you have? One. I said, yeah, no, absolutely not. You guys are gonna screw up my booking. No way, because they want to do everything right, the booking and whatnot. And I interviewed 5 or 6, and they were with 5-star reviews and whatnot. And of course, the very professional ones that manage big apartment complexes, they will not want to manage. And I just did not like how they did things. I wanted them to show me properties that they managed, and they refused to do that. So that was a big red flag right there. And I figured, I want to manage for a couple of years. Well, 10 years later, I'm still managing and I'm fine. And it's really worked great. You build the experience and the confidence.
Yeah, I do like the philosophy of managing your properties, at least for the first year, especially when you're new, because you get to run in and get an actual like crash course of some problems or some red flags that pop up. So you also know when the property manager calls you, you have some reference of like what is going on. I feel like it feels different when you actually have experienced it yourself, rather than just immediately going to a property management company.
Yeah, and they have actually bothered to find you a deal for a good price for a repair or something like that. Otherwise, how would you know if you didn't manage it first?
Exactly. And like you said yourself, when you interview, property management for those people that manage 500 units, it's a numbers game. And if they're not going to make their profit on your property, they might not take it. But also in our shoes as the investor, if you're managing 500 properties, how much care are you going to give my property? And that's the question that I always have.
That was the question, exactly. And just having one accountant, one bookkeeper, that's a recipe for disaster. It's small step, but they were trying to snatch as many properties as possible to manage. I mean, granted, they might have excellent teams that can do it for cheaper, but they won't charge you cheaper. And they want, for one property, they might want 10 to 12% from your gross income per month. Now, if you give them more properties, that might lower itself to 9 or 8%, but still, I can do this. I have arranged my schedule as a nurse so that I work 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and then 4 days a week I have to myself. So if anything needs to happen, I mean, I've renovated houses by myself. Of course, the heavy contractor work like water heater change, air conditioner change, that I call people for that. But as far as painting and minor things around the house, I can dedicate 12 hours a day to painting if I want to. I've done that with a 10-minute break for 2 apples at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on what the pressing need is for me to rent the property. But I'm fine with that. I'm not afraid to work and get my hands dirty. I mean, I'm a nurse. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm sure your hands get dirty as a nurse.
Yeah.
We won't go into those details here.
No.
But yeah, those are a lot of the problems that you see, and I'd call them behind the scenes that investors or people that are going to get investing don't see up front because they're not talked about. There's so many problems front of the house with tenants, and you'd mentioned problems with tenants that you'd ran into. staple thing that either popped up multiple times, or one of those problems with a tenant that you didn't think you would cross, but with you managing the property, something happened where you had to cross a bridge where it was kind of uncomfortable, or um, a fire you had to put out that you weren't expecting to have to do?
Oh, yes, yes. I will remember this till the day I die, actually. But tenants always present their best behavior when they want to rent the property. And if there are going to be problems, in the worst people, they're going to manifest right away. Within the first month, they'll completely change their course. Say they were a recovering drug addict, turns out they're not recovered. They drive traffic to your property. Also, the revolving door, 3, 4 o'clock, 5, 6 men come to the property and make noises and disturb the other tenants. So you evict immediately. Just that doesn't even last 2 or 3 months. That type of a contract, so to speak. These are the things that pop up, and they provide the deposit and the rent the first month, and then they're immediately late. The next rent, they're late, and that's not going to cure. And you have steep late fees, and they paid it. Some even paid the late fees, but it didn't pan out. And once I didn't renew a contract after a year. I said, "You guys are out. That's it." And 3 times I have evicted because they were out of control. And again, it showed right away. And there are all sorts of stories. They almost died in a car crash. Oh, their bank got robbed. This and this. They're very manipulative, and they think you'll believe them. And it's like, did you just really tell this to me? And then the next month, the rent is again late. I said, you have another life-threatening experience. Are you alive? Because I'm very upfront, and like I said, mutual respect. But if you start BSing me, I'm not going to take that lightly, because I'm not nice. I'm a Balkan woman from Bulgaria. Okay? So if you lie to me, I'll let you know that I know that, and feel free not to do it again. So these are unpleasant experiences, and another reason why people don't want to go into real estate investing, because of that risk. Not everybody's going to treat you with the same integrity that you treat them. But it's the same with people that you work with, patients and all that. Now, they're not stuck on your property, but that's why you try to invest in states that are landlord friendly, or relatively landlord friendly, because you need to get the help you need when you need somebody out of the property, because they're destroying it or they're disturbing the other tenants. And if you don't address the problem, then your good tenants will leave. And you owe to them to remove this person if it's so problematic, right? And it's not pleasant. I admit it's not pleasant, but it's part of the reality of being an investor.
Yep. And I know that there were stories all over the place during the 19 to 21 COVID crash, where there was one investor who he was living in his van in the driveway because he couldn't live in his house because the tenant who hadn't paid rent in like a year and a half, they even went to court, and the court sided with him that he has to stay in the property. So he legally wasn't allowed in his house. He couldn't collect rent. He was like screwed. And he was in a state where it was not very landlord friendly.
Obviously.
He just, and everybody to the sniff test would, the way that municipality runs or that state ran, that was the decision.
Please explain to me what made sense during the COVID pandemic.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing did.
Thank you.
And so those problems with rental incomes and in the tragic stories that happened in the lying, do you do screenings before?
I always do screenings, yes.
Crazy
credit screenings, background checks, always. But I never had problems during the COVID pandemic with my tenants. None of them decided to cheat and say, "Oh, I can't work," and they weren't even allowed to present proof to you, even here in Arizona. But none of them did it, because they knew I was a very reasonable landlord, and they really had nowhere else to go. And they also knew that you can evict them at any point after the pandemic, because they've missed so much rent that you're not obligated to, But no, I didn't have any issues with tenants because of COVID, and they didn't lose their jobs, which was even better. They were all in the so-called essential jobs, whatever that means, right? Like anybody can decide whether your work is essential or not, but they were determined to be essential workers. So every one of them kept their job online or in person. And so I didn't lose them, but I know big investors were very greatly hurt, because the more units you own, the more risk you have that some people are
Right.
going to default when they lose their jobs in a pandemic like that. But who would think that something absurd like this would happen for 2 years?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. And that's wild. And it's crazy that you can do everything you can to prevent these problems from popping up, and they still will.
Yep.
You do those screenings to try and make sure that your tenant is responsible enough to take on and manage or maintain your property correctly. And like you said, it shows pretty early. And the hard thing is, as the early investor, is to see it and to take action on it early, because there's always like that fear of like, I don't want to be disrespectful, or I got to give them a break. And I feel like your skin gets a little bit thicker as more and more of those situations come up. I don't know if that was
Very much so. Very much so. Oh, yeah. You were weak at the beginning because you really want to accommodate the tenants very badly. You want your investment to work, and you really cannot reconcile that the person doesn't have nearly half your integrity, and they treat you like they think you're stupid. And they can smell, many of them, especially the people who manipulate the system, who have manipulated the system for decades. They can immediately smell the new landlord, the newbie, the rookie, just like a patient can smell the rookie nurse or doctor immediately. It's the exact same thing. And they try to manipulate with their con artists in many ways. But I have had other cases, for instance, tenants who have been amazing for 6 years, and all of a sudden there is this big financial burden on them. That happened with one of my nicest families. And to these people, I made an amendment on the lease, and I lowered the rents by $120 because that family was in dire need. And I said, for a year we can do that, but then we have to go back to your current rent, guys. And they were just so appreciative, but I didn't want to lose them because they were doing good with the property. They were maintaining it properly. And anybody else, if you have to turn over an apartment, you have to spend multiple thousands of dollars to renovate it and paint and all that. So it's you gauge your options, but only once have I had to do that exception. And it paid off well because they're still there. And now we're back, of course, to the normal rent that they didn't with the due increases and everything. But you have to know the people. And like I said, the biggest problems show up early.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Absolutely. And we've made concessions like that where they were in a hardship or something. And let's say they had 8 months left on their rent and they were in hardship for a couple months. We've decreased for a couple months, and then basically just whatever amount they weren't paying, you just divide it up with your remaining amounts. So your rent dips for a few months and then it goes higher than expected. But at the end of the term, it's all the same amount. It just gives them a little bit of a breathing room, because you can't go to the grocery store and be like, hey, I'll come back and pay you the $100 for X amount of months.
And exactly. The roof above your head is the most important thing.
Right. And that is also a testament to the tenants that a landlord would offer that service to them, because if you are a good tenant and you're paying on time, you're taking care of the property, I'm more lenient to work with you. But if you're a tenant that's constantly late, that always has damages, and you're breaking stuff, and then you ask for help, less and less likely am I going to be able to extend myself. As much as I'd like to, I can't.
Yeah. So, exactly. I agree completely.
Yeah. And I know we're coming up an hour. I always ask like what bit of advice you'd give that investor that is starting out, but I feel like your advice would be discipline. I feel like that's the theme, is discipline. Do you have any tactical, because I know discipline would be your overall answer. I don't want to answer for you, but I feel like that might be it. Do you have any tactful things for a new investor? Like, hey, watch out for this, or make sure you do these things to set you up properly?
Yeah, always have a plan. Do very careful inspection, and call contractors in besides the inspector when you have a new property, especially if it's a multifamily. Have the plan. Don't lose money for things that you shouldn't. Call at least 6 or 7 contractors before you decide on the price of a repair. It can never, don't rush yourself and make premature decisions, because at the beginning you will lose money. You have to learn to budget properly. But to budget properly, you need to lose some money first. If you don't have any experience with the case like I was. But you will need to learn to cut your other expenses. I mean, you can't be craving for luxury items and status display if you want to be an investor, because the first 5 years are a learning curve. So you either learn your business as an investor or you live a high-end lifestyle. Both don't happen so well. I mean, you can, but then you'll be really stretched and over-leveraged. So learn finances, learn every day, read books every day, at least 5-10 pages if you're that busy, whatever you're doing. But discipline is with sticking with your plan, and you only change the plan if part of it doesn't work. You're going to make it work, but you will not give up on your plan just because things happen not as you expected, and they will. And your situation will be different from anybody else you learn from or you read from. But that's the beauty of the business. Your situation is different. You need to handle your own damn problems. And you handle 1, 2, 3, 400 problems. At 200, will be much more confident if you didn't give up at first. And it's not easy. That's why not everybody is an investor, okay? So you have ventured into that, you take your responsibility, and you go with it.
I like it. That's a good bow to put on top of it, because that is something that I feel like every investor, you get enough of the Instagram investors who are like, I'm living on a beach and I work 3 hours a day and it's all rainbows and sprinkles. And they leave out the discipline part. And all I want them to do is expand. Like, it's not a vacation. You're going to hit road bumps. You're going to hit walls, and you're going to have to adapt in some things. It is work. It's not a vacation. But if you can make that, sorry, you can go.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, if you can get over the work that you're going to have to do, that benefit, even inside of just feeling like you accomplished something very difficult, is enough. But you're going to see the financial benefit of all that hard work too. But you can't cut out the hard work. It's not just a vacation. So
10 to 15 years into the experience, it becomes more and more of a vacation, because you get bugged and less anxiety with all the problems that you face, and you know you're solving them. And they're not anxiety-provoking event anymore. And you have plenty of capital and resources if you are disciplined the first 10 years.
Yep.
Then it becomes really wonderful and rewarding. It's just like any other career. You need at least 10 years of experience to be in control. First of all, of yourself, then of everything else.
Yeah.
So the sooner you become self-controlled of your impulses, the faster you will get to that 10-year feeling of, I'm now really in control of the situation, and whatever. It takes time, and it's just really, you have to persevere through that, and it can become a vacation. But the people who advertise on Instagram, they've been investors for 2-3 months, they basically want to get for a coaching business to supplement their repairs that they didn't budget properly for. And they're picturing that wonderful, I think they're full of crap, at least 80% of them.
Yeah. There's some of them that I just wish that that they covered the hard part, the not so fun, glamorous Hollywood side of it. Because I feel
you have to pay them for coaching for that if they know what they're doing, but most of them won't cover that part.
I know.
It's important to know these things. I mean, come on.
Yes. I like it. Hard work, discipline. I feel like that's the overall theme here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're being very trivial.
Well, I am like amazed at where you came from and how far you've come. It's super I don't even know the word, like respectful, and it's amazing to see where all the hard work has taken you.
Well, thank you, but you're doing the same thing with your partner, and I mean, you guys have done this probably longer than I have. I've only done it for 10
we've
years.
only been in it for 8 years.
Nice.
We've only been in it for 8 years.
So yeah, you know what you're doing. That's
a couple more years will be experienced, right?
Yeah.
And especially with children, it's even more remarkable, because you want to teach your children finances and tangible assets, and many people, unlike you, use their children as an excuse not to venture into new risky things, and you are not doing that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I use him as awesome labor. I had him frame a wall when he was like 6 years old. It was great. He got his own hammer and his tool belt.
No, he'll learn things. That's fantastic. Handy stuff.
Right.
Wonderful.
Right.
Self-sufficiency.
Exactly. That's what I want. That's what I want for him. I want you to be able to be self-sufficient. That's my goal.
Exactly. I hope he likes it and he doesn't mind it, because he can learn a great deal from you.
Yeah.
He likes it. He doesn't like going to do it, but when he's doing it, it is fun. But getting him up to do it, that is the difficult part.
And then what about the final result when the job is done and the reward of
Put your
a
hands
job
on your
well
hips
done?
and like, yes, we completed this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do your children help too?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Pulling weeds, picking up the mess that the dog makes in the yard. Yeah.
Perfect.
Raking.
Yep.
She likes making a mess or deconstructing things more than putting things together. But
He'll help you with all the demo that you
yeah,
need to
she
do.
definitely did. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
No,
she's
that's
funny.
cool. Well, thank you for giving us the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I hope the listeners pulled out multiple pieces from your background and your life. So thank you for the insight on how you're making your business work.
Of course. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was great.